Yes, you read the title correctly. Nier 3 has already happened. Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and a few days ago I made a video talking about an interview that Yosuke Saito gave to Gematsu, essentially hinting at the idea that there will be an announcement for something Nier related in 2025, and many people speculate this to be a new Nier game. And we have been waiting with bated breath for a follow-up for Nier Automata since that game came out all those years ago. Many of us had at least something to tide us over when it came to the remaster / totally not a remake of Nier Replicant, and a lot of us Nier fans, I have Nier Automata as my favorite game of all time and Nier Replicant in my top 10 games of all time, have essentially been waiting for Square Enix to do something that's not just a crossover with this IP. But did you know that there was actually a third Nier game already? Not Drakengard, a third Nier game. Well, it doesn't really exist anymore. The game was called Nier Reincarnation. It was a gacha mobile entry in Nier. And I know that sentence right there may spark either a groan of dissatisfaction, possibly annoyance, or just a, oh god, here we go again. And yeah, here we go again. I tried getting into that game multiple times myself because, as I said before, I am a massive fan of Nier. I love that IP and I hold it in the highest regard, and it is pretty sad that the third mainline entry in that series, where the other two entries are in my top 10 games of all time and one of them being in the number 1 slot, the third entry being just a gacha mobile game that didn't even do well enough. The game shut down. You can't play the game, at least legally, anymore. And that's a shame, not only for game preservation's sake, well, that's a large chunk of the pie, but just that I haven't fully experienced Reincarnation myself. I know a few tidbits, and I know that the lore gets really dang good. It takes a bit to get there, but I know it eventually becomes really interesting and cool, and a genuine addition to the Nier universe. And now we'll never be able to experience it again, because they chose to have that story be a part of a gacha mobile game that wasn't successful enough and shut down. And your thoughts about a mobile gacha game aside, it is a shame that just for the sake of game preservation, it's gone, only having scattered playthroughs found on YouTube and the like. And the little bit that I did play of Nier Reincarnation was inspired, at least in terms of the story and the world and the characters. It was a beautiful game, and the soundtrack was Nier, so it was amazing. It took place in this weird location called the Cage, consisting of these desolate towers that just scaled higher and higher, and you played as this little girl who had this like puppet companion follower, like how in Replicant you had Grimoire Vice, and in Automata you had the Pods. In Reincarnation you had this little ghost companion called Mama, and she would follow you around as you dove into like these weapons that you would find and uncover in your adventures around the tower. You would scale into these like closed off storylines attached to these weapons and learn about, well, what happened to them. It was a cool concept, but again, it's gone now, and that's the biggest rub for me. In a series that is as well received, beloved, and treasured as Nier, that to me is the best example of how a story can be told within the video game format, unique to it, and utilize all the tools and methodologies available to it as a video game, and by nature of being a video game, to tell a more compelling and interesting and engrossing narrative that couldn't be done in any other medium. When they made the anime adaptation, they made a bunch of systemic changes, and I appreciated that because there's no way you can tell this story one for one and have it hit nearly as hard as it does because it's a video game, because it makes use of the fact that it's a video game to further its storytelling and its story overall. It's not just the fact that Nier makes use of the fact it can have multiple playthroughs and stuff like that. It makes use of dang near everything that it has because it's a video game. So having a series like that, having a major entry like Reincarnation just no longer be available, to me is a blemish, and is a criticism that I will levy at this franchise from now on, because they actively chose to have the third entry be that gacha mobile game. And no matter how cool or inspired the story was, now it's no longer available, so now it is perpetually compromised in terms of experiencing that narrative. That's on Square Enix, because in the pursuit of money, in pursuit of what Square Enix has been trying to do over the last long while now, is chase after the bag that gacha games have been able to find within the mobile market. To me at least, and for now, it has left a blemish on one of my favorite IPs in all of gaming. And if future Nier stories make use of the lore that was established in Reincarnation and don't do a good enough job of recapping it or explaining it as a new and fresh experience, then it's going to compromise future stories that come down the line. I think there's a few ways they can get out of it. None that are necessarily ideal, but I do think there are ways to at least mitigate the possible damage this can have for the IP going into the future, especially considering how impactful some of those lore reveals actually are. And I think the big one that is being talked about and has been mentioned in my comments in the last video that I talked about before, covering the rumors in the interview, they could make an offline version of Nier Reincarnation. Honestly, I think that's probably the best play they can do. What are they going to do, make an anime? I mean, you could. I'd rather have it as a game, though. And I'd rather have an offline version of Nier Reincarnation, retool the combat a bit, because that was the biggest off-putting thing for me in terms of actually getting into Reincarnation to begin with. I just couldn't vibe with the combat. It reeked of, like, mobile autoplay BS that I just cannot, like, click with. It doesn't vibe with me. It's completely and wholly off-putting to me. I don't like playing mobile games on my phone anyways. I'm not opposed to gacha games if they're good enough. And despite having a beautiful world and soundtrack, I want more out of a game than that. So I couldn't get into Reincarnation myself. But if they were to make an offline version of that story with more rock-solid gameplay, I don't know how successful it would perform, but I can at least say that I would be interested in that product. And I imagine there would be many other people who have either already experienced Reincarnation and would like to experience it again, or who couldn't get into it like me, but still love Nier and want to know what the heck happened and don't want to just watch a YouTube recap to find out what happened. I imagine it would appeal to them as well. The big question for Square Enix, I imagine, would be how big is that audience and is it profitable enough? Because I can't see this being something that would have a big budget behind it. I imagine this would be a smaller entry from Square Enix, but considering over the last year and a half they keep yapping on about their change in business model and priorities going into the future, and to focus more so in on those big budget experiences and also focusing in on multi-platform releases, maybe this could work in that. It feels more like Cope to me, though. And there's a part of me that thinks what they're going to end up doing is just move on to a whole brand new entry and go from there. And don't get me wrong or mistaken, I think that can work, and in terms of what is the best business decision, that is probably the best one, so you don't have to have this whole controversy about Reincarnation play in the background of your entire marketing cycle for a new Nier game if you're just going to recap the Reincarnation story. Because you can play Replicant and you can play Automata and perfectly enjoy those games without prior knowledge of the other existing. I played Automata before I knew the story of Replicant, and I loved the game, and it became my favorite game of all time. And then I played Replicant, and a lot of scenes and moments and quest lines in Automata became recontextualized for me, and I appreciated it even more. I imagine that would probably be the direction they go for. Because it's not like when it comes to Nier, they ever really do direct sequels and direct follow-ups. The closest we've gotten in that regard is the Final Fantasy XIV Nier Automata crossover, which I don't even think is canonical to the canon main timeline of Nier Automata, at least ending E. Because in that crossover, we saw 2B and 9S go across multiple dimensions and worlds chasing after the Red Girl. And in terms of direct follow-ups for a Nier game, that's the closest we've gotten in terms of a game. I think what they're likely going to just end up doing is have a whole new experience that you can experience by itself with no prior knowledge of the series and love and appreciate it for that. But if you know the previous lore, it'll enhance the experience all the same. And I imagine that's what they're going to do. Would I like to see some kind of offline version of Nier Reincarnation? Absolutely. Because it's a beautiful world, and despite despite being a gacha mobile game, which for a lot of people just sends off red flags and bad signals and vibes, you play that game for any length of time and there's clear inspiration in that story and in that world. And it's a beauty that I would like to see preserved in some way, somehow. I don't think it's likely, and I would caution Square Enix from ever doing this again, especially for a series like Nier, having a mainline entry be a gacha mobile game that could be subject for being terminated if it doesn't perform well enough, because we wind up in this position having to have this conversation. And for one of my favorite IPs ever, it's not a conversation I ever want to have. I want to just get hyped up for a new Nier game. I just want to look back on the previous entries, be able to go back to them and play them again, and uncover something that I hadn't before, and find something new to appreciate about them. That's what I like to do. I don't want to have these conversations, because they wanted a few extra dollars and chase a trend. So they had to sacrifice an absolutely brilliant piece of inspired art on the altar of monetization. And I don't want this to come off as if I'm pessimistic for the future of Nier, because I'm not. I'm still very much looking forward to whatever the next game could be. Hopefully we return to a proper one and done experience as a game for the 4th entry in Nier. They could do Drakengard 4, I don't think they would. They could do it and I'll still be excited. There's a lot I would like to see out of this franchise going into the future. If it's a new game that's completely disconnected from what came before, or does that like follow up Nier way, where it's like thousands of years in the future and you can put a few things together if you know the lore, but if you don't, you'll still be able to enjoy it. I'm down with that. If they want to do a remaster / remake of Drakengard 1 or 3, I'm down for that. I would love to experience those. If they want to do an offline version of Reincarnation, again, I'd be down for that. I just don't think they would do that. I think the future is bright for Nier. It's just unfortunate we have this dark spot, this blemish that doesn't or never needed to exist. This, to me, was user error on the part of Square Enix. I'm just hoping they don't make the same mistake again in the future. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite Nier game is so far. Replicant, Automata, Reincarnation. And if you loved Reincarnation, what I want you to do specifically, tell me your favorite moment, your favorite memory. If you want to go full spoilers, go ahead. Not like we can experience the game again. If you're a Drakengard fan, let me know. I'd love to hear what your favorite game and what your favorite moment from Nier and Drakengard is. Because it's easy to get down about an IP that has a blemish like this, but I still love it, and I still want to be optimistic in regards to it. So let's spread some positivity here. Thank you all for tuning in, stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again!